Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Stream for all of the international relations and geopolitics news that's fit to stream, with the occasional amphibian on the side. Today I am joined by two Polish gentlemen who have been more than welcome to answer my call to have a conversation. I'm joined by Mr. Perrin and Cesar, and I'm going to let you both introduce yourselves, gentlemen, starting with Cesar. Good morning, and thank you for stopping by.
Hello everyone, Cesar from Western Poland here to bring some perspective on what situation looks like in our media.
And Mr. Perrin is also joining us as well. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hello everyone, Swadok Perun here, originally from southern Poland, which will probably be the next point of entry for the migrants. Currently living in Canada, but still, keeping up with Polish politics. All my family's there, visit a lot. And just want to provide a good perspective for everyone about what's really going on. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm very thankful that you both could come on and have this conversation. I thought that it would be a good idea, based on Cesar's suggestion, that we discuss first the situation of Polish politics, how the media is portraying this, and sort of get the on the ground perspective of what it's like to deal with things like the Peace and Justice Party and so on. So Cesar, I know that you had a lot that you wanted to discuss, so we can start there.
Well, I try to do it as brief as possible to get to the crux of the matter. Well, basically, since the main shift that happened in 2005 or 6, the Polish political scene formatted around two main parties, which would be Law and Justice, known as PiS, and the civic platform, known as PO. Well, the situation between those two parties quite closely mimics the situation that happens between the Democrats and Republicans in the US. We actually had an equivalent of Trump derangement syndrome here since that time, surrounding the leader of Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, who simply had the same type of media reaction from the mainstream as the last president of the US had. And right now, everything that happens, either in internal or external politics, is simply shown through that lens. So each media outlet that's pro Law and Justice Party simply shows everything in the most advantageous way, while the media that support the opposition do exactly the opposite.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Well, there will be some examples of this later, but let's go. Let's see what Mr. Swarok has to say about the situation.
Yeah, no, so that's exactly right. There are these two Bantustans, the Peace Bantustan and the Civic Platform Bantustan. The Civic Platform actually exists in a coalition with other opposition parties called the Citizens Coalition, because they just can't win, so they try to combine. Poland has a parliamentary system with proportional representation, so they try to scoop up as many votes as possible within. No one ever wins an outright majority, although PiS did win an outright majority the last time, unusually. So there's these two polarized fronts. It's very correct that they mimic the Democratic Party, the GOP sort of duality, the fake duality, obviously. The problem also is that a lot of people in the West, because Polish isn't a very popular language, so most people can't follow the Polish media. They have to rely on translations. And there is a whole propaganda campaign, not just from the opposition, but also from the ruling PiS, the Law and Justice Party, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość. That's what PiS stands for. And so if some of you may have heard of these like based Poland Twitter accounts or like all this stuff, and they paint a much rosier picture of just how quote unquote based peace really is. They're not. I mean, compared to what's happening in Canada and America and Western Europe, sure, it's infinitely more based. But like, when your country's on fire and Muslims are raping your women all over like your cities, sure, anything is based. But unfortunately, peace has been playing this fake game where they claim that they, support the free market. They're actually very socialistic. They claim they want to restrict immigration, but they give out visas. About 600 this is before COVID, obviously. Migration fell everywhere during COVID. But before COVID, the Polish government was averaging about 600 to 680,000 Schengen visas, mostly to places like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. Not exactly, the hallmark of Christianity. While publicly claiming that there's no Muslim migration into Poland, when some independent, not the mainstream media, because even the left-wing mainstream media who wants to go after peace can't go after them on immigration because they're pro-immigration themselves. But so when some independent media like Media Narodowe, Realu 24, etc., and there was also a Polish lady from Sweden, Joanna Teglund, who also brought all of this stuff to light. When people revealed that about 600 to 680,000 Uzbeks and Kyrgyz and Tajiks, etc., were coming to the EU via Poland every year, the Polish Ministry of the Interior erased all that from their website. But the problem is, because they're within Schengen, that same information exists on EU websites, on the EU Migration Directorate website, so people could still verify it. But so, and why and then the pieces excuses, well, they're just going to transit through Poland and go somewhere else. Well, then why are you letting them in? And B, under the EU regulations, the Dublin Accord, because there is a common border area, the Schengen zone, to make sure that one country doesn't do stupid things that affects the other Schengen countries, responsibility is placed on the country that issues the visa. So if any one of these like migrants that Poland let in for cheap labor, basically, do anything, get caught either in France, Germany, Italy, what have you, the country who issued the visa to them is responsible for them. So those people then are transported back to Poland, or if, for example, Ireland issued the visa, those people would be sent back to Ireland. And then the Polish or the Irish or whoever, whichever authorities, are responsible for processing that person, adjudicating their case, deporting them, if you can even deport them, because most countries don't even want to take back their own people. So it's actually a very dangerous game that peace has been playing for the sake of sucking up to the business community who want cheap labor. Because the problem is, rather than letting the free market work on its own and wages rising on their own in Poland, Polish people, like my relatives, most of them have done this. I left back when it was still communist, so this doesn't really apply to me. But like my relatives that still live in Poland, almost all of them, they'll go to England or Germany, England not anymore, or Ireland, to find a better paying job, and that creates a labor market shortage in Poland. So then either they let in a bunch of Tajiks and Uzbeks, or Ukrainians are our new favorite. They're like basically the Mexicans of Poland. We let them in for cheap labor. There's about 3 million of them in Poland right now, and a country of 40 million people, 39 million people specifically. So peace has been playing a very dangerous game. They also have felt some pain because the last parliamentary elections that happened in 2019, they won in the main chamber of parliament, the same, but they lost in the Senate. Now, the Polish Senate, Poland doesn't have perfect bicameralism, so the Polish Senate can't really do a lot unless they have a supermajority, which the opposition doesn't. So they can at most delay legislation for like 30 days. And in terms of budget bills, only 14 days. So it's not a lot. But the problem is peace basically hasn't accomplished anything they promised since 2015. Even though they had majorities then, they still have a technical working majority now. They're not accomplishing anything either because, and yes, there is a fight between the EU and Poland, and what the EU wants from Poland isn't good either. But peace cynically either takes advantage of these different fights with different countries in the EU to make themselves look like a victim and use that as an excuse for not doing anything they promised or not being as right wing as they could, or they'll create these fights themselves. Like there's certain bills about not teaching LGBT agenda in schools, which I fully agree with. But the manner in which Peace went about it basically was to pick a fight with the EU about it, and then Peace could be like, "Oh, see, the EU is stopping us from implementing our agenda, and we're just see, this is why we can't do anything."
If I may, well, on that point, the actual bill that Peace was trying to force was about promoting pro-family values, which in turn was presented in the media as anti-LGBT agenda. So it's also how everything it does is being in many ways twisted.
No, I agree, but
just to present it a bit broader.
But the problem is the way Peace presented that bill. It was so sloppy, and so they were so not ready for what they knew that was going to come. It's almost as if they did it on purpose, so they could have this in their back pocket of, "Oh, see, we're victims of the EU again." And again, I'm not defending the EU. The EU is scum. What they're doing to Poland right now, which could be a separate show, is totally horrible. But Peace cynically takes advantage of these fights with the EU to shield themselves from any personal responsibility for all the failures that they have, even though they have majorities for the last 6 years in the Polish parliament. The other thing is there is a real right-wing party in Poland called Konfederacja, and Peace does everything they possibly can to destroy them. For example, in the last election, rather than saying, "Hey, Konfederacja, we're allegedly this based and red-pilled right-wing party, and you actually are. Why don't we work together and have a supermajority in the same?" Well, it wouldn't be a supermajority, but you can help us pass some bills. Rather than doing that, Peace has literally promoted certain left-wing, far-left politicians to committees within the same, like the Family and Social Affairs Committee. This crazy woman was made its chair for a while. There was a backroom deal that Peace made with the Lewica party, which means the leftist party. They, during the last election, they literally had the government state broadcaster TVP like ban any talk of Konfederacja. The courts had to issue verdicts against the station to allow information about Konfederacja to appear on the news per the electoral law. So it's just the same cynical type of GOP action where they would rather attack someone to the right of them and actually and suck up to the left than rather just being a truly right-wing, truly conservative party. And it's very sad. It's very disheartening because I can see just how much American influence, I can see just how much influence from Berlin, from Washington, from London is trying to denigrate Poland and trying to turn Poland into this global homo lefty paradise. And instead of really, really, really fighting it, Peace is using it in a very cynical way. And I'm not saying all of it is deserved by Peace or everything was started by Peace. I'm absolutely not saying that. The EU and what the Biden administration are doing are disgusting. But when you are attacking parties to your right that can help you and cynically making backroom deals with left-wing parties so you can it's very disappointing. And yeah, it mirrors what Cesar said. It mirrors a lot what is happening in the GOP Democrat dynamic. And just to quickly finish off, the reason why Lukashenko is doing this, and then we can go into specifics what's happening, is because Poland, for some strange reason, feels the need to constantly suck up to America. And America basically has used Poland as a useful idiot to help stage that fake, stupid color revolution that happened in Belarus recently. And so this is Lukashenko's way of exacting revenge. Because I don't know why Poland had to become America's lapdog for the fight for freedom and democracy in Belarus. We have a Polish minority in Belarus, and they have suffered greatly because of this. They are now being thrown in jail. They're being tortured. There's another tactic that Lukashenko is using to punish the Polish government for agreeing to be America's lapdog. in Belarus, and what did we get in return for it? Nothing, except now this crisis where Lukashenko is doing it to punish us for interfering in his domestic affairs, not defending Lukashenko, not defending Belarus, but I mean, Poland had gained nothing from helping stage that stupid color revolution that failed anyway. Lukashenko still in power, and now Polish minorities in Belarus are suffering, and Poland is now suffering with his action on the border.
So I did have a question for both of you, because what I find interesting is that there is this cultural pushback, right, against the EU, against, this open border sort of Schengen idea of just a movement of people, cheaper labor costs. But I know that there is pushback, at least politically, considering how much money that Poland receives from the EU. The last I checked, it was somewhere around 147 billion euros a year from the EU, which is one of the largest recipients inside of the Union. And I was wondering how much of that plays an impact, because that money has been put towards some significant use.
Well, firstly, there's the issue of how much we are receiving and how much of that money is actually returning back to the Western countries in the EU, because
Okay.
much of those funds or for investments, which usually are realized by purchasing technology from Germany and France, for example.
Yeah, it's about 86. Poland received subsidies from the EU because it didn't have a market economy until the early 90s. And has to be raised to the level of the median EU average. Although some specific regions in Poland no longer receive subsidies. For example, the capital region around Warsaw, Mazowsze, has now been now officially under EU statistics at the same level as the rest of the EU, so it receives almost nothing. But overall, you're right, Poland still receives a lot. And what Cesar said is 100% correct. A lot of the stuff that the Polish government does with that money goes to German and French firms. It's about 80 to 86%, depending on the year. So it's basically the EU is basically a crypto Fourth Reich. It's a way of Germany to continue its own business. It's basically government subsidies via the EU for German companies, and German companies actually are very pissed off right now about the withholding of the funds, because as part of what I think are completely scandalous and unfair various actions that EU is prosecuting against Poland, the Mittelstand, those infamous German, small and medium-sized enterprises that are the backbone of the German economy, they're pissed because if Poland won't receive those funds, then they don't receive their contracts, which are paid from those funds. So it's a very interesting sort of like a circle of life going on there. So yes, the EU is very generous to Poland, but then that money is generously spent by the Polish state on other EU states' programs and services.
Yeah, it just trickles down back to their pockets in the end. There are also other costs which we incur. For example, most higher education in Poland is free, so if a majority of younger people who leave to find better paying work abroad is being educated from the taxpayers' money instead of and then works for the economy of other EU member state economies.
Oh yeah. So Poland has a critical shortage of doctors and nurses because they're very well trained. And literally, this is not an exaggeration, next to every medical and nursing school, there are like Swedish or German or Finnish recruitment agencies that literally will bring you in, wine you and dine you, even offer you free language courses, just as long as you sign a piece of paper that when you graduate, you go straight to Finland or Sweden as well. Sweden. So there's the average age of a Polish nurse now is 55 point something. This was a big thing lately because there was a strike a nurses strike in Poland a few weeks ago over pay. And the average age of a Polish nurse is 55 and change because all the young nurses are going straight to Finland, Sweden, Germany, And also the UK. The UK hospitals, the NHS basically runs on Polish nurses. So yeah, education in Poland is free. Even grad school is free. So yeah, basically we're educating everyone for everyone else at our own expense. But yes, we're getting Erasmus grants or whatever grants. Well, all those people are going back to the source of those grants anyway.
Yes, and there is also another matter, because we were one of the later states to join the EU. We were forced to adopt much more regulations that aren't necessarily being upheld by older member states. So our economy is much more constricted by those regulations, and because of that, we suffer additional costs for various branches of economy, like production and such.
Yep, yeah, that's true. The EU is famous for their regulations. Like everybody knows a joke, which is not a joke, of that carrots have to be considered fruit, or that bananas have to be straight, can't be crooked. And this level of ridiculousness spreads into all kinds of areas of production. And right now, Poland is being really tested and really suffering at the hands of the EU in terms of our energy industry. There's various actions going on against Poland for that. So no, absolutely, like. There were benefits, obviously, like the town I'm from. Whenever I visit, oh, there's a new bridge. Oh, there's a new road. There's a big plaque that has the EU flag on it, saying, this is from the EU Regional Development Fund. Yay, thank you. A German company
Yes, but
that road. But
yes,
there's all
and
these other costs that we incur that where there are no plaques saying, hey, this is because the EU made us do it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you wanted to add there?
One moment. No, I think that sums things up quite nicely.
Yeah.
Well, now that we have a pretty good idea of the domestic situation, and I do want to let the audience know that this is right. I'm going to do this in two parts. This conversation today is getting sort of the on-the-ground Polish perspective, and then next week, hopefully Semyagog will be joining me, and we'll be talking about sort of the inner workings between various actors and sort of the power politics that are in play. But I think that this gives us now a good transition to sort of talk about the ongoing tension at the border. And I wanted to share this picture because this was from Sky News just yesterday. And so give me 1 second here. And they were talking about how despite the fence is still working. I know that you said that they work relatively well and that there's been an increase in military buildup. There have been some places where they've managed to get through. And so, they were turned back in these areas. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. I studied Latin in college, so.
We love our consonants.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you sure do. But I know that there's been a lot of pushback, but there's also been articles stating that a lot of these migrants have been given, wire cutters or, the necessary means to get past these gates.
Yeah. So what's happening is that these people are not victims. They know exactly what they're doing. They're deliberately paying like 5,000 plus euro in Syria, Iraq, Yemen is another source, flying to Minsk and then being bussed by the Belarusian military and border guards to the border and forced, like the film clips from this. I'm going to quickly share my screen. Sorry.
Give me 1 second here.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a really good Twitter channel called Nexta where they show you various undercover scenes happening on the Belarusian side. And so what happens is that the Belarusian military, you can see that here. Let me blow it up. Let me just kill the sound, though. The Belarusian military pushes these people onto the border and forces them to cross. They do not let them retreat. And because obviously this is the hybrid war where the migrants are weaponized as weapons against Poland and the EU. And so there was like some crazy scenes where they give them weapons, they give them chainsaws to cut down trees and to level the trees on top of the barbed wire. There's some good pics of that. Let me find some. So they can jump across the barbed wire. Luckily, there's a phalanx of Polish border guards, which is like a paramilitary unit. Police and the military are all there. Some get through, but they're usually intercepted. Most luckily aren't getting through. But I mean, more and more and more and more people are accumulating there, and eventually something will happen. However, a border wall is being constructed. It was just voted on the same. Too late, in my opinion. They should have voted this through like back in April when we first started getting signals about this. But whatever, a border wall construction is beginning soon. It's going to be a 5-meter tall fence, also fitted with a bunch of monitoring equipment, and it's going to run the length of the Belarusian border. There's even talk of extending it down through the Ukrainian border, because the Ukraine Poland border is also historically has been a place for people to cross illegally, because Ukraine is a mess, so like they barely have any control over their own country. So migrants also use the instability in Ukraine to try to get into the EU. But anyway, back to the Belarusian border. So yeah, no, these migrants are given weapons, tools, and let me show you something else to try to cross the border. Oh, here's another one. Hold on, I'm not sharing. Let me share. I'm just gonna keep sharing for a while then, I guess. Sorry.
You're good.
This is another attack where the migrants were giving lasers to blind the Polish border guards so they could like jump across the fence. And then there's a armored vehicle from the Belarusian military trying to break the barbed wire. Luckily, they were repelled, but they kept trying. Here's something else that's very interesting. One moment. Sorry, I know this is annoying when I'm just scrolling through it. Yeah. Oh, there's even people from Africa now, from Mali. These guys were from Mali. They were flown in as
Well,
well.
there were actually even some people who were intercepted who were Cubans.
Yeah, even Cubans.
Oh, yeah.
They're also shamelessly using children. See that they wrote "help" with markers on their head, on their foreheads. They're shamelessly.
And keep in mind, it's in English for the media.
Yeah. It's not even in Arabic or in Polish or in Belarusian. Here's the here it is. Here they are handing out logs to try to throw across the barbed wire so they could like scale it. This is the Belarusian military delivering these on the Belarusian side. So this is there's absolutely no doubt that this is a hybrid warfare attack against the Polish state and against the EU to subdue Poland. Where is that other one? Let me show you this another good one. See more children being exploited here. Here's another one. Hold on. Sorry. Oh, more migrant camps in Minsk. So this might backfire on Lukashenko, because since they're not successfully getting through, now all over Belarus, especially in the capital of Minsk, there's all these migrant camps everywhere. And these migrant camps were supposed to exist on the Polish side or on the German side, because most of these migrants want to go to Germany, where the welfare rates are higher than in Poland. But nope, they're in Minsk, and the people in Minsk are getting pissed because it wasn't supposed to end like that. It was supposed to end the other way. What else? Oh,
Yeah,
the
well,
Russian military is doing provocation by flying, because basically Belarus is a client state of Russia, by flying their nuclear bombers by the Polish border. That river there is the Polish border. With Belarus. Sorry, it says that you were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, as far as we know, despite holding back most of the migrants, according to German reports, currently they've up to date they managed to intercept about 9 to 10,000 of people who got through. So probably that's at least 2 or 3 times the number that they've got. So despite keeping the main tide at bay, there are still some leaks.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge border, and this part of Poland is very sparsely populated. It's like a wilderness, basically. And see, here they are trying to cut down the barbed wire, everything on the Belarusian side. The Polish border guards are spraying them with pepper spray. to keep them away. They're using those logs to try to topple the barbed wire. But yeah, Cesar is right. Some have gotten through Germany. We don't know how many of them got there through Poland versus the other routes, but I'm sure some of them got through Poland. And now we have this funny situation where the German Interior Ministry is deploying extra border guards to the Polish-German border to just in case they do get through Poland and then want to go through Poland to Germany.
Well, I do know that in regards to the Russian military exercises, there are things to keep in mind. I know that the Polish government has recently called on more from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. During the Trump administration, I know the Polish government had been heavily influencing Trump's foreign policy, to where there's a military base that they wanted to get built in Polish, inside their country. More money was brought into the Polish government for military resources. There is a lot of, background power play at hand here that is important to keep in mind.
When it comes to that, it can be clearly stated that the civic platform is more oriented towards Germany and the EU, while PiS tries to orient Polish foreign politics mainly towards the US. That's why they try to do they tried to secure all those deals with Trump when he was in office. And that's why since Trump got ousted, PiS suffered some image setbacks because he was being portrayed as this sort of great ally to them.
Yeah. And just quickly, just to quickly switch topics for 1 second, I want to address some of the comments I'm seeing in the chat. No, these are not NGOs. This is not the same situation that's happening in the Mediterranean, where these stupid NGOs are literally trafficking migrants to Italy and Greece under the guise of rescuing them in the ocean. This isn't NGOs. This is the Belarusian state doing this on purpose as part of
yes, but it has to be stated. Yeah, it has to be stated that there are all groups that are trafficking those people, that are taking money from them for being trafficked, and that Belarusian authorities are taking a cut for facilitating this.
Yeah, so
they're actually giving more.
Yeah, go on.
They're actually giving tourist visas to many of those migrants to let them in legally.
Yeah. So I did all the comments in the chat about how NGOs are doing this. This is not NGOs. This is a direct war effort by the Belarusian state. No one goes to Minsk. Minsk is like the Detroit of Eastern Europe. It's a toilet bowl. I have friends from Minsk. Like, no one wants to go there. Like, no one from Iraq, Yemen, or Syria goes to Minsk for an all-inclusive vacation. They're flying there with one purpose and one purpose only: to try to breach the EU border, because Poland is the frontier of the EU on the east. So this is not NGOs in this case. The NGOs are the ones doing all the bad stuff on the Mediterranean route. This is the Belarusian state deliberately allowing these people to go in under false pretenses. So and then like you saw in the videos, then trucking them, the military, Belarusian military is trucking them to the border and forcing them to cross. They don't even let them retreat. So now these people are stuck between the Polish border line and the Belarusian military that won't let them go any further, because like I showed in the other video, even the Belarusian people are getting fed up because all these migrants are now milling around Minsk everywhere. And like I said, it was supposed to happen to us in Poland. It wasn't supposed to happen to them, but it's backfiring. So no, the NGO line here is not the correct line.
Yes, it can be said that the goal of all this was to either cause damage to our image via this crisis, or to tax our resources by forcing us to accept large quantities of people, or just to have EU have sanctions on us for not upholding our part of the deal in securing the borders. So in plan, it was supposed to be a win-win or a win for Belarus, but hopefully by stalling the situation as long as we did, it's actually starting to backfire somewhat in their face.
And so all the people that are saying, "Oh, just let them into Germany," no, Poland is an EU member state. And unlike the other idiot EU member states in 2015 who didn't uphold their legal obligation to defend the EU's external border, Poland actually is upholding its legal obligation to uphold the EU's external border. And we're not going to let these people just pass to Germany, because then we would be as stupid and as bad as everybody else. And then more people would come and the floodgates would open even further. So no, this is not a good idea either, just to let them through, because no, they're just, it just, like, what is the point of having a border if you're just going to let people through? And like,
Yes.
all of these comments are coming from America. Guys, you should wish that your border guards and your military defend the U.S.-Mexico border the way
we wish. Trust me,
it's border. So no stupid comments about letting them through. No stupid comments about Putin or Lukashenko being based because they're hurting the EU. No, like, this is going to hurt everyone, and it's not good. It can't happen. Like,
Yeah,
this is
well,
not where we fall into the stupid based versus not based false binary either.
yeah, exactly. They're doing what's good for their countries as they see it, not for ours, for our good. So, as base as they may seem to be, it's not serving us in any way.
Correct. And the Germans and the French and the Italians and everybody else and all those EU pro-migration monkeys from 2015 are finally waking up, because the German media, and I'll show you some clips from the German media. Let me share my screen.
well, keep in mind though that Lukashenko is not necessarily happy on either end when it comes to either the EU or the West, as you would like to call it, or with the Russians. And even more so, the situation has escalated, and I'll talk about this next week. But even now, Lukashenko has threatened to turn off gas, and I mean, it is a myriad of countries where both, they're not happy with their sort of respective, either client state or the regional hegemon in the area, because Poland is setting up sort of its fight with the EU on cultural issues in the law. I know your constitutional court was recently setting up a battle about the supremacy of EU law. At the same time, Belarus was offered money to sort of democratize. I believe that Ursula from the EU had said that they had like a roughly €3 billion package for them if they were to embrace the toe the party line of human rights and democracy,
global homo, all that stuff.
So it's not a difficult position to put them in. And you have a country like Poland that you guys had discussed earlier about the hospital situation that is suffering from a ridiculous amount of brain drain, is reacting to sort of this consequence of globalization.
Correct.
And here we are, and I know that you had some clips where you had, or some articles that you wanted to share about the German perspective now that things have changed. So, you have them up. There you go.
And I don't know if I already said this on the chat, or if this was during our pre-show conversation, but the reason basically why Lukashenko is doing this is because of that stupid color revolution that happened in Belarus a few months ago. That failed. Poland was America's lapdog in helping stage that. I don't know what the hell Poland got in return for it. Nothing. And this is Lukashenko's payback for us meddling in his affairs. I'm not defending Lukashenko, not defending Belarus. They're horrible places. No one wants to go there except they want to sneak into Europe. But this is his justification. I'm punishing you for meddling in my affairs and trying to unseat me during that color revolution that happened a few months ago. But so having said that, that's the reason why this is happening. It's not justification, it's just a reason. But all the EU migration monkeys, who, even if they won't admit it, learned their lesson from 2015, are now singing a different tune. Like Bild, one of the biggest German newspapers, is now thanking Poland. Danke, Poland. Even like more leftist newspapers like the Süddeutsche Zeitung are also publishing articles. I translated this from German, where they're blaming the EU. Like, no, this is the EU's fault, not Poland's fault. Like, this is language that was unheard of in 2015, 2016 during the migration crisis. Like, it was Poland was one of the worst countries in Europe because we refused to open the borders. We refused to take in our quota of migrants. but because apparently it was our fault that stupid Merkel said, we are missing shaft, we can do it. Apparently that meant everybody.
Yes, we can all. Yeah, we can all remember how Hungary was being treated for doing exactly what we're doing right now.
Correct.
So, yeah.
So this editorial 180 of the German newspapers. There's no conservatism in Germany. They're all brainwashed, like liberal, neoliberal. So for them to take such a strong 180 editorial stance, and first people were saying, oh, it's because it's the election and immigration is not popular. Well, the election's been over for like almost 2 months now. And the stance is still being upheld even by the new, more lefty government in Germany. So this is quite the turnaround. The EU now, the parliament, not the commission. The commission is still playing hard to get because that's to punish Poland for those other things we just mentioned, the constitutional court, etc. But the EU parliament is now suggesting that the EU actually pay for that border fence that Poland is starting to build, because after all, Poland is doing its part to not just defend its own border, but to defend the EU's external border. So again, this is a massive, massive policy and narrative shift. Hopefully it lasts because it's a good shift. But yeah, it's just to show you how much things have changed from 2015, where like retarded German feminists were like standing at train stations with refugee welcome signs and like calling everyone racist who didn't want to like have 10 of them living in their house. This is quite the shift. So let's hope this shift stands. But who knows? Because the EU Polish fight is still going on about other subjects. And who knows if the political winds change, the EU may want to cynically use this against Poland. Who knows? But for now, it looks like the EU might finally get its act together. Who knows? I don't know, Cesar, is there anything like that happened lately in the media in Poland that's showing anything like that?
Well, actually, I wanted to go a bit back to the beginning of all this debacle to show some things, because while you were mentioning that in Germany and in the rest of the EU, situation has changed for the longest time, but in Polish media, the situation was being shown exactly like there was no shift. I'm going to send 2 links to your Prudentialist if you could play them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, where did you send them? On the private chat or DM?
I sent it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. I see.
Yeah. It's the latest one, and I'm sending another one. Yeah. The last one shows one of the opposition politicians who was trying to run over the border with bags with supplies for the refugees, just so that he could make a photo op, regardless of causing any type of incident. While another one I'm trying to find is about a group of activists from a foundation called Open Dialogue, who were destroying fences right at the beginning of the crisis.
And Open Dialogue is a Soros Open Society foundation, so you know what they're about.
Yes, and almost all of those actions in the beginning were just not to accomplish anything other than just a quick photo op, which shows exactly what's the priority for the opposition, at least most of the opposition right now in Poland.
So, okay, let me go share the video you sent me. As everyone can see my lovely...
this is amazing.
So, the text at the bottom, if you could sort of give me a translation here for the audience.
Cesar?
1 second.
Poseł, okay. So Poseł was a member of parliament. Poseł, KO was this Koalicja Obywatelska, civic coalition, the opposition. So this idiot MP was trying to, those big IKEA bags full of supplies. It's illegal to try to cross the border and deliver like supplies to people unless you're going through an official border crossing. So he tried to outrun the border guards and the police to try to deliver chocolates to the refugees.
Yes, and just imagine the sort of international embarrassment it would cost if a member of Polish parliament was being apprehended and arrested by Belarusian forces for doing an international crime in crossing the borders illegally.
Yeah. Like if the Belarusian authorities had shot him, that like he or
They would
captured him.
they would actually be in the right if they shot him while doing that.
Yeah. And so the only good thing about, and there's been more of these incidents, and the only good thing about these incidents, they're horrible. There's also the open. Are you gonna show the clip about the open dialogue cutting the fence?
Yes, it's the second. I've sent you the link
Yeah.
already.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The only good thing about these things is that they've devastated the opposition, because even the Polish people who don't like peace are like, are you guys kidding me? You're helping our enemies at the border? Like, come on. So like this has devastated the opposition's polling numbers.
All right,
Yes.
240p. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I'm sure that on the ground footage is
They're
hard
hooking
to
up.
get in
They're hooking
HD.
up the fence to a car.
I think they'll be trying to tear it down themselves without anything.
They're cutting it with cutters.
Yeah, it's the first line of the fence which was being built right at the start of all this
this is
crisis.
from a while ago. The fence is bigger now. This is when it was first laid, the barbed wire fence, and they were cutting with the cutters. There's another incident where they actually hooked it up to a car and tried to like pull it with a car. It's ridiculous. Another incident with these leftist bastards happened just 4 days ago. They actually took a van, painted it as an ambulance, and tried to smuggle 12 or 13 migrants inside of that fake ambulance. The Polish border guards were suspicious about this weird ambulance. Oh, because there's a state of emergency. So 3 kilometers away from the border, no one can enter without permission. There's a state of emergency declared. So the Polish border guards were like, why is this random ambulance here? No one called an ambulance. And so they gave chase. And some idiot like leftist and his conspirator were smuggling a bunch of migrants inside of that fake ambulance. They were all caught, including the perpetrators. Yeah.
Yes, another interesting thing that happened, which actually embarrassed some of the pro-opposition media, is that there were a surprising amount of news reports where they published one-to-one Belarus propaganda without any sort of annotation from where it came from, and it's also something that blew in the media's face recently.
Yeah, no, it is actually the level of sadly, Poland has a history of always having a fifth column, whether it's when the Teutonic Knights illegally took over part of Poland, or the partitions of Poland with the Targowica. There's this element in Polish society that is just like these retards, these awful human beings that betray their own country. So the Gazeta Wyborcza, which is basically this like post-communist idiot newspaper in Warsaw, their new little bitchy fight with the government is that because of the state of emergency, they're not allowed to enter there. No one is, including the media. So they're like, well, if you won't let us report directly from there, and they would just lie anyway, we're gonna just like take the Belarusian border guards news reports and pass them off as independent, verifiable sources. And it's just like, I mean, and that was uncovered, like Cesar just said. It blew up in their faces, but they're still doing it. Nothing's stopping them. They don't care. They want global homo. They want open borders. Luckily, it's a tiny minority in Poland still, but if we don't stamp it out, it's going to metastasize like it has in the West. But yeah, they're there trying their darnest. George Soros, the Adenauer Foundation, the Ford Foundations, they're sending them money, like beefing them up. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Like you would think that, like, and again, the vast majority of Polish people are against it. Even people who don't like the ruling party are against this. But there's this like decided element, this fifth column within Polish society, a minority, but still, and they will do anything to like pause Poland to the greatest extent possible. It's disgusting.
Well, to be honest, it's mostly the case of being so against the current ruling party that they're willing to do any damage they can to them, regardless of whatever other consequences or so.
Yeah,
It's
I call
mostly
it
a case of
Kaczynski
not thinking.
derangement syndrome.
Yeah, and we've been having it for over 15 years right now, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So the mainstream opposition parties have Kaczynski derangement syndrome, but there's this like even scarier element that's luckily just a tiny little element that are like very Antifa like, very like ultra leftist radical like, and they're the idiots doing the fence cuttings, stuff like that, or transporting the migrants in those fake ambulances. And then the mainstream opposition party, the Koalicja Obywatelska, that idiot MP you saw running across the border, they will like this. It's just every day I watch the news in Poland. I don't watch. There's only one decent channel, Polsat, because the state channel TVP is like peace propaganda. The private channel TVN is KO propaganda. Polsat is the most decent one. I don't know. Do you agree, Cesar, that Polsat is the best one out of the three of
Well,
them?
I know that they're at least trying to be a little bit balanced,
Objective,
but yeah.
yeah. I also watch the independent channels like Media Narodowe, Realu 24,
Yeah, I know
24.
them.
Yeah, and it's just the way.
What's your opinion on TV Republica?
Oh, their crypto piece. So
Yeah.
this is actually, thank you for bringing that up. There is this so when the peace government realized that the state broadcaster was too obvious in being a shill for the ruling party, this new TV station popped up called Telewizja Republika, and I watched it for a while. I was like, something stinks here. Something's not right.
Well,
And it's
I have to disagree with you
peace.
because they actually showed up before peace got into power, and to be honest, when peace
But they weren't big. No one even knew about them.
Yeah, but they actually nearly folded when peace started trying to get workers from there to put into national media.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then they got a new funding, a new breath of life. And now, in my opinion, I don't know, Cesar maybe disagree, but in my opinion, Republica is just like a gatekeeping operation of TVP.
Well, actually, in my opinion, Republica is something that can, with time, maybe grow into something that serves the same function as in the US Fox News does. So it won't be perfect, it will be biased, but at least in time, it will become some sort of another counter to the mainstream.
But
which is better, yeah.
But what about all those emails? So this other funny thing happening in Poland is one of the ministers, Dworczyk, he's an idiot who used Gmail for his government emails. So all of them have leaked. And like some of the emails coming out of there, like the one about the interview in Republica, that the narrative is already said, we just have to pepper it with questions. What about that?
Well, let's be honest. Do you think those situations happen? Everywhere. Yeah. So,
but so
the only thing that's boggling is just the level of incompetence in the government that things like this get out.
Right. But that's why I don't necessarily have too much faith in Republica. I hope I'm wrong, but like so far to me, Republica seems like a psyop of TVP to make it look like there is real opposition in the media. But I don't know. I don't know.
In my opinion,
I think this gives us a good point to sort of transition, because as we talk about media, of course, there's always going to be the media setting up a narrative while at the same time kind of saying the facts. I mean, one of the things that I have seen, especially now, right, we talked about it earlier between Poland and NATO trying to get something out of it, especially because what we've seen for the last 30 years, and I think, Swarog, you can talk more about it since you were there back when it was still a communist country, or at least under the Iron Curtain, was that, you know, the Soviet Union collapses, and what immediately happens afterwards, right, is that we immediately start seeing this expansion of the European community. We see the expansion of NATO closer and closer to Russia's border. And of course, that makes things a little uneasy, and I can imagine, at least from a historical sense, why Poland might be willing to do so after a world war and then years under the Iron Curtain to call for some kind of defense. But the one thing that I think is interesting here in the article I have on screen to show is that you do have members of your parliament calling from NATO to help step up. There has been discussion about having the EU be more involved. And as I've talked about previously on this channel, that Turkey kind of does a similar thing. It leverages its position in the international community with migrants. Erdogan has said in the past that he's got 4.2 million people that he has no problem releasing. And this feels eerily similar.
The same happens with Monaco on the Spanish border.
But yeah, and so I mean, this is where we're at, right? Is that there is this setup for the other powers at play to start having an impact, because you do have Lukashenko, who has been facing issues from the EU, promises of money, issues of talking about wanting to hold gas off from the European Union, which all that does is put Russia in an awkward space. All of which, right, is a setup for a lot of great power politics at play. And we'll talk about this more next week. But I think that with you being on the ground, does that feel like an overwhelming presence to you, that you can feel that this is definitely has a lot more at play here between, say, like Russia or the United States and other countries?
Well, there are a couple of theories about what's to gain here. One thing is that what Lukashenko is doing is mostly because of the inspiration from Russia, who wanted a crisis, which would be an excuse for them to come as a peacekeeping action and try to annex Belarus by different means. Because while they're allies, it's known that Russia is trying to gain more and more influence over them, and Lukashenko was doing whatever he could to stay afloat and remain independent. Other thing is that sorry, Wood and Perrin, would you like to comment on what I said previously?
No, so Lukashenko has a problem because he wants to have it both ways. He wants to be a big boy and run his own little fiefdom, but because he's the last dictator left in Europe, the only people that can support it, and again, Belarus is a crap hole. Like, it is like the toilet bowl of Eastern Europe. Like, I feel so sorry for everyone that lives there. Like, it is not a good place. Like, it's poor, it's backwards. It's I know a lot of people are like, oh no, it's so based, because no, it's not based. It's a horrible place. And yeah, so he's a client of the Russian Federation, and because he's a client of the Russian Federation, Russia can use him as cannon fodder when they need to, or as a good boy when they need to fight against NATO eastward expansion. Because it does have to be said that Russia, I'm not supporting Russia or anything like that, but Russia was kind of betrayed by America. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, certain promises were made about the eastward expansion of NATO and how it wouldn't happen past East Germany, and it did, obviously. So Russia is now doing whatever it can. They can't launch a direct war, so they have to be hybrid wars and pushing back against this NATO expansion. I mean, when there was, remember the nonsense about sending weapons to Ukraine and the America sending weapons to Ukraine and trying to talk about even letting Ukraine into NATO? I mean, that was just so unnecessarily provocative. So yeah, and Poland has bad luck in geographically in being positioned between the two great powers, whether it was Germany and Russia in the Middle Ages, or Western American controlled Western Europe and the Soviet Union in the modern era. So Poland sometimes also wants to also benefit from that position where they can also play off against each other and try to excise some concessions from that. So far, I have to say, honestly, Poland hasn't gotten that much. Just the missile defense never came that was promised. I think the number of U.S. troops in Poland's like 4,000 right now, not very much. And it's also a mixed bag, because is that really a blessing or a curse? So I'm not actually sure how much Poland can even get out of this. What do you think, Cesar?
Well, to be honest, most of what Poland was trying to get from the US is some sort of open-ended backing, which is what we always do. When US tried adventurism into Afghanistan and Iraq, we also supported them open-endedly without setting any terms,
Yep.
and also got nothing. It's just this strange mentality
Yeah.
our elites have that they shouldn't ask for anything. Instead, do as much as they can, and then just expect some sort of gratefulness in return, which usually ends in just
Yeah.
giving yielding nothing.
Yeah, no, I don't understand why Poland is constantly offering itself up to be America's lapdog. If you're gonna be a lapdog against, like, at least get fed really good meals and like get lots of good toys, and Poland hasn't even gotten that. Like, so I really
Yeah,
wish,
well,
Polish like
yeah,
elites and diplomats would get their act together and at least extract some concessions from everything that they've done for America, including riling up the stupid color revolution in Belarus that now we're paying the price for by having Lukashenko punish us with his migration.
yeah. But this attitude is harkens back to the mentality which was just dominating in politics in the well on our side of the Iron Curtain, because how things usually work there, that you just have to suck up to Moscow and just hope for some sort of appreciation, and just the same thinking, despite all the changes, is still present here. We
Yeah.
simply haven't cured ourselves from that sort of mentality. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like I mentioned earlier, there's always been this mentality, I don't know why, within Polish elite circles to appeal to a greater power next to you and to have them be your big daddy. And I wish it would stop because it always backfired historically, whether the partitions of Poland and the Targowica or whether now, like, it's just I don't know. America is not going to do anything for Poland, and not that it's America's job to do anything for Poland, but at the same time, then Poland shouldn't be offering itself as the fall guy for American uh, interventionism in Eastern Europe either. Like, it's just a disaster. And don't even get me started on Ukraine, because Ukraine has been a historical enemy of Poland. First of all, Ukraine's not even a real country. No offense, Ukrainians. You're a real people. You have a real culture, but you never existed as an independent country before World War One. And they murdered like many, allied with the Nazis during World War II, and murdered like scores and scores of Polish people because Polish territory actually used to extend into Ukraine. And now we're sucking up to the Ukrainians too, because that's America. America wants to like use Ukraine as a cudgel against Russia. So now Poland has to pretend that Ukraine is also now too, and like stick our nose in that. And who knows what consequences we will pay for that. So there's just like, we could do like entire lecture on this. Like, just,
Yes, but I do want to keep the focus more so on the Polish perspective on the border.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be doing more of that later this next week, but I think that a good transition point here, at least talking about it, is that I know that there was a report yesterday that I was reading that there was one Polish soldier that had recently was killed, which reports had said it was an accident.
He actually died, in an accident away from the border in a weapon discharge accident. So it's nothing to do with the situation on the borders. There were actually, there were actually 2 Russians that died on maneuvers quite close to the border, but it was a parachuting mishap.
Yeah. There's been some Polish soldiers injured by like migrants throwing rocks and stuff, but just like cuts and bruises. But like no deaths. That death, like Cesar said, have nothing to do with the border.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, like you had said earlier, there is a enhanced defense cooperation agreement that came out earlier this year. There's about 4,500 American personnel in there. I know that the United States is doing some maneuvers, at least with its military in Germany. I'll talk more about that next week. As at the same time, the Russians are flying Tu-22Ms over by the Russian or the Belarusian and Polish border. I guess my good question to ask, and I'll leave you both to answer, would just be, do you think that this might lead to a potential conflict, or is there potentially at least a non-kinetic, a non-violent solution at hand?
Well, that depends. I think that if anything is to happen, it will be mostly to serve Russian interests, not Belarusian, and they will try to prevent it actually, because whenever something happens on the border and Russia gets an excuse, they will actually be just as screwed as us then. So at least from Lukashenko's perspective, he will try to de-escalate open conflict and just try to keep the pressure up, and actually will be either hoping for us to break or will try to reroute them. I think there were some talks about sending the migrants south through Ukraine and Slovakia to the Czech Republic and further to Germany and to Austria.
Yeah, like they are getting desperate because it is backfiring a bit on them. Like I showed you guys all those videos of like huge numbers of these exotic visitors, as they're being called, piling up in Minsk, and the Belarusian people are getting, annoyed because it wasn't supposed to happen to them. So yeah, there's this possibility of them being rerouted through Ukraine, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and then Germany. That might be more difficult because I don't think the Ukraine would let them through, and all because they don't want to import that problem themselves. And then Ukraine would also lose all the goodwill it's built up with the U.S. by pissing off NATO member states by letting those migrants through to them. So I don't think that might happen. And I think there may already be some de-escalation happening to save face, because Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, who is an excellent person in terms of his diplomacy, he's a Satan's associate, but he is skilled. Like he is I respect that man. Like he knows what he's doing, even though he's evil, but he knows what he's doing. And he floated the idea 2 or 3 days ago, or maybe 4 days ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cesar. That maybe they could Lukashenko could receive payments from the EU, and then everything would stop. So even though that's blackmail and we shouldn't pay him, it seems that now Russia is maybe trying to create a possible exit strategy, because it turns out that the Polish military and the Polish border guards are more resolute than they suspected. And more importantly, what I was showing you guys earlier, how the Western EU media and even the European Parliament are now saying, oh, this is good. Maybe we should even help Poland build that border fence. So I think the EU, the Russians and the Belarusians may be taken aback a little, but just how much the attitude has changed in the EU since 2015 towards open borders. And so I think that little suggestion about Lavrov about paying Lukashenko off a one-time payment and it would all stop, again, shouldn't be done. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't pay them, as that saying goes. But that seems like Russia is trying to create some sort of exit strategy. I don't know, but it's weird that Lavrov would even suggest that. What do you think, Cesar?
Yes, that is possible, especially since Belarus is an important gas transiting hub, as Prudentialist already mentioned. But there's also another issue, that it's it's a major point in continental shipping from China, and one of the main terminals in that shipping is on the Polish border, on that route. If someone from the EU decides to actually block that line, it would cause major trouble both from Belarus and for Russia with their Chinese business partners.
Yeah, that's true. So, the Silk Road, all that stuff. Belarus is a major transshipment point. So if the EU really got pissed off and said, that's it, we're shutting down the border completely, that would devastate their economy, the Belarusian economy. And that would cause then problems for Russia, because Belarus is a Russian client state. So if more unrest, more poverty, etc., happens in Belarus, then that one might open the ground for another colorful revolution, which obviously Russia doesn't want to happen in their client state.
Well, then I guess I'll ask here then, just as we get a little bit past the hour mark. I guess final thoughts. I mean, between reports of Belarusians being giving wire cutters and taxi services taking them to the border, video footage of them saying that they want to go to Germany, the military maneuvers from greater powers, just with people who have family there and who live there, just what are your, I guess, your sentiments? What are your thoughts? How do you feel, I guess, would be the most open-ended question to ask.
Well, it's obvious it's obvious that what's happening on the borders is, well, it may be seen as tragic and probably should be seen, but as it was mentioned in the beginning, most of the people were from their own volition. There are even examples from those migrants who were apprehended and sent to the hospitals on our side of the border that they're either hostile or ungrateful for the help because they're being detained here instead of getting back. So sorry, but as far as kindness goes, it's it's short on both sides, I think.
Yeah, and I think that now that winter is coming, this could go both ways, because part of the psychological hybrid warfare that Lukashenko hopes to employ is that, the EU and the Polish are such meanies because they're not letting these poor little migrants get, the refugee status they so deserve. Never mind that he's causing it. But this could go two ways. People are going to start freezing to death on that border soon, because winter is coming, and that area has very harsh winter weather. So and Lukashenko will deliberately not help them. Again, the military, they're not just taking taxis to the border, they're being trucked by the military to the border and being forbidden from retreating back away from the border because he wants to force them to cross. So if once we see dead bodies piling up, like frozen to death, there's unfortunately like a sector of Polish females that are crazy, like a couple of the former first ladies of Poland, Kwaśniewska, Borowiecka, and the Wałęsa's wife, did a little press conference like a week ago about the children. Most people were like, go away, we don't care. But if too many bodies pile up, frozen bodies of migrants pile up, that might shift the narrative. But at the same time, now that the EU has really stepped up and already threatened all the airlines, and openly said that if it comes to it, we will completely shut down the border and completely freeze out Belarus. Maybe it depends how cynical and nihilistic Lukashenko can get, how far he wants to push it. That really depends about what happens next, how I feel about this. So we'll see. But I hope that signal, that what I interpreted to be that signal that Lavrov already is sending, maybe that even Russia may tell Lukashenko, okay, we tried, it's not going the way we wanted it. But I know this is not a concrete answer because the situation is so dynamic, there is no concrete answer. But it really depends, I think, what happens this winter and what the body count of those migrants gets up to. Because Lukashenko has no problem sacrificing them at all. And how that will play on the heartstrings of people. I think that's what we should watch for. How cruel will Lukashenko get, and how much emotional blackmail the European society is willing to tolerate.
Well, I thank you both for your answer. You're both more than willing to stick around as I get closer here to the end. But I I guess just to give some final thoughts of my own after interviewing with you both and talking with you and listening to everything you had to say. It's always eye-opening when you get to hear, someone who's there on the ground or at least lives in the countries that you talk about. I'm sure that many Americans in the chat will tell you that there's always that disconnect about what we see and read on the news versus, actually the people that live there and if they've been there. I haven't had the pleasure growing up when I lived over in Europe to get as far as Poland. I managed to get as far as Austria and Hungary, but never to Poland. So I can't speak on the country. But I want to, again, just thank you both for telling us how you feel, telling us what you see, some of the footage that you all managed to share. The authenticity is great. And, well, he just popped out, but hopefully they'll come back in. But no, Cesar, thank you especially because I know that you're living
If I
there.
may,
Go for it.
yeah, I would like to plug something. I've sent you a link to a Polish foundation that's working in the Middle East, trying to help people just stabilize the region, to help them start businesses, and just give them a reason to stay where their homeland is without feeling the need to go to Europe to find a better life. It's called Orla Straż, the Eagle Watch, and those are people who, unlike most organizations that go there, just give out handouts and come back, or living there for a couple of years and or working to improve the situation on the ground. So if you could plug them.
Oh, by all means, I'll throw that into the chat there. So this is what he is referring to about trying to rebuild at home so they don't have to come somewhere
exactly.
else. And yeah, I will plug that in there and I'll put it up there for everyone to go see. But yeah, no, again, I thank you both for offering your perspective. I know that there are probably dozens of other people that may have a different point of view or but again, it's always nice to have a conversation with those on the ground. And so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. And if anybody has any questions, I'm thinking, I have a daytime PMC job, but there's just so much misinformation and so much lack of information about Poland and what's happening in the Anglosphere because of all the various evil forces working against Poland. I'm thinking of maybe writing something. I don't know. I don't have anything yet. But if anybody wants to contact me, has any questions, if you want, you can show up by email. Feel free to email me and ask me. I'll be happy.
I will put it in the chat.
I'll be happy to help anyone. Yeah. But thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you both for coming on. I'm going to get to just sort of the announcements and housekeeping part for the end of the show. So if you have things that you need to attend to or take off from, then you're by all means, I won't hold you.
Okay. And just to say, Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, which means Poland hasn't fallen yet, is the first line of the national anthem, and it won't fall. In the end, this will work out.
Exactly.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
You guys take care.
Bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get to the wonderful end parts here, and we'll do what we usually do when it comes to the end of the show. And let me pull up my announcements, and we'll get started from there and talk about Super Chats. So here we go. Share. And allow audio as always. And present. Oops. And yep. And present. Okay, well, so on to some announcements and some basic housekeeping. We'll get started here. So like I said, we're just doing twice a month Substack posts. The next one is going to be about urban sprawl and enclavism, just some things I'm observing about where I live. Be some more of the just basic stuff that I see. It might be called YIMBYist or not in my backyard, but it'll be fun regardless because it's just stuff that I've been witnessing as the metroplex of Texas's cities keeps growing and growing. On top of that, I've made some new video intros. So the production quality is upgraded, so things will be a lot of fun. I think that you'll all enjoy that. I have regular stuff for scripted intros and some nicer, higher quality intros for actual real talk. So that's what's up next. I plan on doing a movie review for the movie Her that came out in 2013. I'm probably going to do a movie night for patrons, and I want to get some perspective from all of those. So it'll be a lot of fun for those that are, you know, wonderful supporters and channel members. So I appreciate it. If y'all are interested, by all means, let me know in the comments. And of course, you can DM me on Subscribestar. The politics and masculinity video, the big project, one of the bigger projects I've been working on, is slated for next month. So a month from now, hopefully it will be out and available for you all guys. And as I posted on the community tab and channel, that we've got quite a few live streams lined up, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll have a non-political conversation on this Wednesday with Geo from Break the Rules, Twitter e-celeb of well-renowned. We'll just be talking about pain, the memory it has, encounters with mortality. It's sort of a conversation in regards to just our own experiences, how that affects our perspective on the world, and how you grow from it. Apex might join. It just depends on his schedule, but it'll be a fun non-politics conversation. So it'll be a lot of fun. And then after that, on the 22nd, a Monday afternoon, Astral of Astral Flight on Substack will be joining me to talk about Spangler's Decline of the West Volume 2. So we'll be having a lot of good conversations to come. And not to mention next week, a continuation of this topic, and Semiagog will hopefully be joining me. And then on top of that, next week, I'll have a video out for you all on the subject of transhumanism and some observations I've made based on some recent conversations and just taking a look at, you know, just the last 20 years of sort of our technological progress. And as I agree with Senzub in the comments that, not going to lie, transhumanism freaks me out. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And so I'm going to just talk about some of my observations and things to be concerned about in this very transhumanistic future that those in power wish to have. But I've already seen a million comments about what's to come next, so I think it's time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, since we decided to talk about European affairs today, I believe that it would be very fitting that we talk about the moor frog, which can be found in various parts in Eastern Europe, including Poland and Belarus. They have a natural habitat that varies all over the place, which includes temperate forests, the tundra, the steppe, swamps, streams, farmland. They can be found all over the place, and in fact are quite adapted to their environments that they live within. Fully grown, they usually are about less than 3 inches, although the females, of course, with it being a sexually dimorphic animal, tend to be on the larger side. So they usually get closer to 3 inches. They're around 7 cm or so. They usually will hibernate depending on where they live. So if they're in sort of the steppe or the tundra, throughout September until June, they will find themselves hibernating and burrowing into the ground and making sure that they can be ready for when it comes next. And once that time period of hibernation ends, they are immediately ready to start moving into breeding season in early June throughout the summer, with their spawn soon coming out afterwards, so they can enjoy their lives out there in the spring and in the summertime. But they are very colorful when that happens. Because the males oftentimes will change into a very bright blue color. So normally they're very brown and spotted and can usually mix in with the moss and the dirt and the ground that's around them. But during breeding season, depending on their location, the male frogs will turn into a very bright, light bluish pastel color in the water. So they're very easy to spot, and it lets you know that it's mating season. Other than that, usually in their brown or blue appearance, because of where they live, they're usually in a tracksuit. But that, my friends, is the moor frog for this week's Frog of the Week. geopolitics and more every Sunday, so please be sure to like and share the stream. The more people that we have watching, the more people can be aware about the international affairs, because the world doesn't stop or pause despite the fact that we argue so much about our domestic politics. So with that being said, we can just hang out and catch up with chat and chill with you all. I do want to thank my top 4 patrons over here. They provide $20 a month on my Subscribe Star tab. My link tree is in the description, so if you're interested in being a supporter, it's all there down below. And let's take a look at some super chats, because I know a couple came in. So let me open up Studio. See all. Here we go. Bolero393 says, for $4.99, thank you so much. Could this be a proxy conflict with Belarus and Russia as Russia's proxy and Poland as America's? Is there anything else going on in the background? Yes, Bolero, there is plenty going on in the background in regards to this issue, especially because there's, military maneuvering. There has been Sergei Lavrov, as our wonderful guests described, talking about trying to find some sort of negotiated settlement. And while Lukashenko is very angry, or while Putin is very angry about Lukashenko's threat on shutting off natural gas to Western Europe, he's kind of got his hand twisted, because there was an agreement put out between Germany and the United States and Russia about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And if it's, seen in such a way where the, Nord Stream 2 is now the only sort of sole source, or one of the more major sources, it could be seen as a weaponized attempt, which would sort of trigger this agreement to be put into place. All of which, right, makes it incredibly awkward for Russia as they're trying to go full steam ahead with this pipeline, start getting the natural gas moving, and increase their energy leverage on the European Union. But there's also a lot more going on behind the scenes. And next week, hopefully, Semyagog and I will be breaking this down with maps, breaking this down with flights, sanctions, and sort of the greater politics that are now soon to come with migration. Because Bolero, as I'm sure you know, and as we've talked about on this channel before, if you think that the current migrant crisis and the politics behind it is bad, wait until, the regime changes and we start talking about the issue in regards to climate, refugees and migrants. But yes, I mean, this affects not just, the former Soviet states. This affects Central Europe. This will affect the rest of the Balkan states. It can probably affect the Baltics as well. And the traditional sort of Western European bloc that exists. So yeah, there's a lot there that is happening. So by all means, I mean, there's a lot more going on in the background, but we will be talking about that next week. But this will affect every part of Europe, Western, Central, Eastern Europe, the Baltics. I mean, if there's more than one way, if they're not going to get flights anymore due to the sanctions, I mean, there will be other means, and it probably will not just stay contained in this current border situation. So as things continue to unfold, next week, I will certainly try my best to give you the most in-depth understanding of what I can find with the research and the facts that are available on the ground. Polish ambassador sent 10 from his currency. He says, disavowed, recanted, abnegated, it's all hearsay. I mean, yeah, I am hearing from other people's perspectives. It's technically hearsay. And I know that you had mentioned when I announced the stream that there were some other thoughts that you had. So if you want to leave your thoughts in the comments, I'd be more than welcome to it, because the more of a Polish perspective that I can have, that'd be all the more, all the better, because it's important that we get more than just the 2 gentlemen that I had on here. If I can get more, Polish officials or others that are on the scene or journalists, I will probably make sure that happens in an interview and things like that. But yeah, those were the 2 super chats that came in. Thank you so much for the support. I greatly appreciate it, because as I've always said to those who are my patrons and my channel members, that money doesn't go into my bank account. That money doesn't go into my, savings or anything. That pays off medical bills from the transplant surgery. That pays off my, the medications that I'm on. I take like 20 pills in the morning and I take 20 pills in the afternoon, all to keep me going and functioning with the new kidney, which works great, by the way. I know Forged in the Ashes asked me a question about my health. And so I went to the labs last Wednesday. My kidney's working better than ever. And I picked up my medications. And even though they were like $30 some odd, you guys cover for that. And I'm incredibly thankful. Swarog, I don't know if he's disavowing what was said. I think he's being more so facetious on the grounds that I'm hearing it from other sources and things like that, more so than actually disavowing it. If not, then, I mean, he'll leave a comment and we can find out. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time to hear everything in the way that we're seeing these things play out, especially knowing that there is so much going on in the background that we see. But yeah, Forge in the Ashes. Yeah, I'm doing well. I can't really complain. And yes, my health is good. Some good news though is that my mother no longer has a fever from COVID. She is out on the mend. She plans to return to work next week. So even though it knocked her a little bit off her feet, she's doing just fine and she's doing well. So I wanted to give that update because I know I announced it earlier. I've been isolating away all that time, so it's all okay. Everything's doing all right. Things are looking up and up, and had a good conversation with my priest yesterday when I went to Vespers. So things are looking good despite everything that's happening. So even though we talk about all of the black pills and things as such when it happens, but I think sometimes it's important for us to focus on the day-to-day good things that happen. But yeah, I'm also like really excited to share these like new video intros for you guys because I think that they're going to be a lot of fun to work with. And people ask me how does the sausage get made, and I don't like to share that, but I updated some of the software that I use to make videos now, and I got some better stuff to help editing with the audio. So things are looking good. I'm slowly learning, like the boomer that I am. But yeah, it all varies. But I think that you guys are really going to enjoy it. Charlie Chieftain, thank you so much. You'll find a variety of geopolitical analysis every Sunday, usually at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I did it earlier today to make it happen than the usual time frame here to accommodate the time difference with our guests. But yeah, I also do fishing videos where I just talk off the cuff and you can just see me fish and hopefully catch something on camera. It's always nice. But yeah, so much going on, and I think that it's always important for us to focus on just the good stuff. Tip to read Polish: remove all Z letters, much easier to perceive. The world of consonants. But there's going to be more of this conversation next week. We'll be talking about sort of the greater power politics that reside inside. There's a lot of footage and articles that I've been collecting since we started talking about everything that's going on. But yeah, so with all that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for your support. There are links in the description for everything that you need to have. It's going to be a very busy month of November with streams and videos. And you guys are making it possible to start putting more money, not only into my health, but also into the channel with equipment and software and things like that. So I am incredibly blessed and I am incredibly indebted. And we're very close to 4,000, which is something I wouldn't expect with only doing this for like a year and some change. So by all means, like and share this the stream. And the more people that we can keep going and learning about things, the more that we can keep going to onwards and upwards. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. If it's already somewhere across the international date line, I hope that your Monday is doing well. Take care, everybody. I love you all, and be prudent, and I'll see you all next time.